perfect home, nestled in the heart of Houston, Texas. A 2-story house with a sprawling yard, just the right amount of space for us to spread out. We had worked so hard for this moment, countless hours searching, bidding, negotiating, and now it was ours. The house was everything we'd imagined. Beautiful hardwood floors, sleek countertops in the kitchen, and rooms bathed in natural light. This was it. The place where we would grow old together, where we would raise our children and build our memories. The first night in our new home was pure bliss. The kids were thrilled with their new rooms, running around with excitement as they picked out where their toys would go. Matt and I unpacked the last of the boxes and poured ourselves a glass of wine. Everything felt right. For the first time in years, we had the peace we had been searching for. The house was quiet, calm, and still, with only the faint hum of the refrigerator in the background. It was perfect, but that was just the beginning. I didn't realize then that the house would soon be far from perfect. It would become something else entirely. It started small. A faint creak of the floorboards, just 1 or 2 steps when everyone was downstairs. I brushed it off as the house settling. Houses do that, right? They make noises, especially when they're old. Ours wasn't ancient, but it certainly had history. The sound wasn't alarming, just odd enough to make me pause for a moment. But then there were the whispers. The whispers started on the second night. At first, it was so quiet I wasn't sure if I was hearing things. It was almost like a soft humming sound, coming from somewhere near the back of the house. I lay in bed trying to ignore it. I convinced myself it was just the wind rustling through the trees outside or the air conditioning kicking on. But then I heard it again, louder, clearer. It sounded like words, but I couldn't quite make them out. The strange thing was, it wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from the air vents. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest, straining to listen. The voice seemed to be calling my name. At least that's what it sounded like. But no, it couldn't be. It had to be my imagination. I waited, holding my breath. The house was silent again. The whispers had stopped. But that didn't last long. The next night, the whispers were back, and they were louder. I could feel them like they were traveling through the vents, curling around me like cold fingers. It was impossible to ignore. I turned to Sarah, shaking her gently. "Sarah," I whispered, my voice trembling, "do you hear that?" She grumbled, half asleep, and muttered something about the house settling. But I knew it wasn't just the house. It was something else, waiting for us to notice. By the third night, it wasn't just the whispers. The floorboards started creaking more frequently, like footsteps pacing back and forth upstairs. I was too scared to move. I didn't want to wake Sarah because part of me feared she would just dismiss it like she had before. I stayed up, trying to listen. The footsteps were getting closer, and then they stopped. It was so quiet. It was as though the house itself had gone still, holding its breath. I couldn't stand it anymore. I got up from bed, my bare feet padding silently across the cold hardwood floors. I walked through the darkened hallway, the shadows cast long across the walls. The kids were asleep in their rooms, their doors shut tight. The air felt heavy, thicker than it should have been. I made my way upstairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached the top of the stairs and stopped. The house was unnaturally silent, and then I saw it. In the corner of the hallway near the old wooden mirror we'd hung up just that morning, a figure was standing. It was a man, tall, thin, with dark, hollow eyes. But when I blinked, he was gone. I didn't move. My body was frozen in place. The image of the figure burned into my mind. Had I imagined it? Was it a trick of the light? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something wasn't right. I could feel it now. creeping under my skin like a cold shiver. I rushed back to the bedroom and climbed into bed, pulling the covers over my head, hoping that if I couldn't see it, it couldn't see me. I lay there, terrified to even close my eyes. I tried to breathe steadily to reassure myself that it was just my imagination. But the longer I stayed awake, the more I realized something else, something darker, was happening in this house. The next day, I told Sarah about the figure in the hallway. She laughed it off as a nightmare, as a trick of my tired mind. But I knew what I'd seen. And the more we settled into the house, the more things began to happen. It wasn't just one figure I was seeing. I started noticing things moving on their own. Chairs pushed out from the table when no one was around. Doors creaking open when they should have been shut. That night, it got worse. We were sitting in the living room after dinner, the kids playing quietly in the corner, when we heard a loud crash coming from upstairs. Sarah and I were terrified, rushing up the stairs to find that a heavy bookshelf had toppled over, blocking the hallway. We couldn't understand how it had happened. There was no way the kids could have knocked it over. It would have taken a lot of force. I tried to push the shelf back, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like something pushing back against me from the other side. I stepped back, horrified, and that's when I saw it. A figure, much clearer now, standing in the hallway watching us. The figure didn't move. It didn't blink. I couldn't breathe. My heart was racing in my chest. I grabbed Sarah's arm and together we ran downstairs, too scared to do anything else. We thought about leaving that night, but we stayed. I couldn't explain it, but something in me told me that we couldn't leave. The house had already wrapped its fingers around us and we were trapped. The whispering, the footsteps, the cold spots, they were all part of it now. But why? What was this house trying to harm us? And then the knocking started. It was at night, as we were sitting in the living room trying to make sense of what had been happening. There was a knock at the front door, but when I opened it, no one was there. The porch was empty. I closed the door, but before I could lock it, I heard another knock. This time, it came from the walls, from the inside. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was so loud, so deliberate, like someone was trying to get our attention. I froze, my blood running cold. "Sarah," I whispered. "Did you hear that?" She nodded, her face pale. And just as I was about to open the door again, I heard it, a voice that wasn't mine, a voice that wasn't Sarah's. It said my name. "Matt." I turned to Sarah, my eyes wide in horror. Her face was a mirror of mine, fear, disbelief. We weren't alone. And the worst part? Whoever or whatever was there didn't want us to leave. I grabbed Sarah's arm and yanked her toward the stairs, but before we could make it, the front door slammed shut behind us. We turned to find the house completely dark. And then, from the shadows of the hallway, a figure stepped forward, its eyes glowing in the darkness, watching us. That night, the unease in the house reached a breaking point. I had just finished a late shift at the office and came home to Sarah sitting on the couch staring at the space in front of her. Her eyes were wide, her face pale, like she'd seen a ghost. When I walked in, she didn't even turn to greet me. It was like she was in a trance. "Sarah?" I called softly, but she didn't respond. I moved closer to her, but the air in the room felt thick, almost suffocating. I could feel it in my chest, this heavy presence. She finally turned to me, her eyes full of terror. "Matt," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "There's someone in the house." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stood up and walked to the stairs. I followed her, but I felt a chill run down my spine. I couldn't put my finger on it. But something was off. Something was watching us. We reached the bottom of the stairs, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across the hallway upstairs. My heart skipped a beat. The footsteps didn't sound like the house settling. They were too steady, too rhythmic. I turned to Sarah, my eyes wide with disbelief. "You hear that, right?" She nodded, her face drained of color. "It's been happening all night. The footsteps, the whispers. I don't know what's happening, Matt." I grabbed her hand, trying to reassure her. "It's probably nothing, just the wind or..." But before I could finish, the air grew colder. I could feel it, a sudden drop in temperature that took my breath away. Sarah's hand tightened in mine, and we both turned to look at the stairs. That's when we saw it. In the dim light of the hallway, a figure appeared. It was tall, gaunt, and its shadow stretched across the walls like it was trying to escape. The figure didn't move at first, just standing there, frozen in place. My blood turned to ice. I wanted to run, to grab Sarah and get out of the house, but my legs wouldn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off it. The figure didn't have a face, not a clear one at least. It was like a mass of darkness, a silhouette that seemed to blend into the shadows. But there were eyes, two burning red eyes glaring at us from the darkness. "Matt," Sarah's voice trembled, and I could feel her body shivering beside me. I stepped forward instinctively, as if I could get a better look. But as I took a step toward the stairs, the figure moved. It didn't walk. It floated, gliding toward us with an unnatural, jerky motion. My heart pounded in my chest, and I instinctively pulled Sarah back, my arm shielding her. We backed away, but the figure didn't stop. It was moving toward us faster now, its eyes locked onto mine. It was coming for us. I could feel its presence closing in, surrounding us, squeezing the air from my lungs. "Sarah, get downstairs! Go get the kids! Now!" I shouted, my voice hoarse with panic. I didn't wait for her to react. I bolted down the stairs, pulling her behind me. We rushed into the living room, but the moment I closed the door behind us, I could hear it. The footsteps, closer now, louder, racing down the stairs, following us. Knock, knock, knock. It was coming from the walls again, the same rhythmic pounding as before, only this time it wasn't from one direction. It was coming from all sides, echoing around us, surrounding us like a trap. I tried to ignore it, tried to breathe, but the noise was suffocating. The house was alive with the sound of something trapped inside the walls, something that wanted out. We bolted to the front door, but when I tried to open it, it wouldn't budge. It felt like the door had locked itself from the inside. I yanked at the handle, but it was of no use. We were trapped. I turned to Sarah, my eyes wide with terror. "We need to get out of here. We need to leave now." But before I could do anything, something grabbed my shoulder. A cold, icy grip, so tight that it felt like it was tearing through my skin. I spun around, but there was no one there. Only a cold, empty hallway. And then, in the darkness, I saw it. The same figure from upstairs standing at the end of the hallway, watching us with those glowing eyes. It was as if the house itself was alive, and it wanted us gone. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. I couldn't see Sarah, couldn't see anything. My breath caught in my throat. We were trapped in the dark, with something in here with us. I reached out blindly for Sarah, my hands shaking. "Sarah, where are you?" I whispered into the blackness, but there was no answer. The only sound now was the beating of my own heart and the creaking of the floorboards above us. The whispers returned, louder now, clearer. They weren't coming from the walls. They were coming from all around us. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the kitchen. We needed to get out. We needed to find a way out. The house was closing in on us. But as we turned the corner, I saw it again. The figure. This time, it wasn't standing in the shadows. It was standing right in front of us. "I told you," the voice growled, deep and guttural. "You're not leaving." And then the floor beneath us cracked open, sending us both tumbling into the darkness below. I should have listened to Sarah. After everything that happened, I knew we couldn't stay. The house was no longer a home. It was a prison, a place that refused to let us go. But I didn't know how to escape. That night, everything came to a head. The whispers returned, louder than before, but this time, they weren't coming from the walls. They were inside our heads, filling the room with a deep, bone-chilling dread. I grabbed Sarah, pulling her to the kids' room, but when we got there, Emma and Jake were sitting on the floor, their eyes wide with terror. "I don't want to stay here anymore," Emma whispered, her voice shaking. I felt it too. The house was alive, pressing down on us, suffocating us. We needed to leave, now. But when we tried to open the door, it wouldn't budge. The front door locked tight as if the house had sealed us in. I ran to the kitchen door, but that one wouldn't open either. We were trapped. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the top of the stairs. I turned around but saw nothing. But Sarah, she saw something. Her eyes went wide with fear. "It's him," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I turned, and there he was. The figure. The same shadow I had seen in the hallway, but this time, it was real. His glowing eyes burned into me, and I felt the cold chill of his presence. "You're not leaving," the voice hissed. It wasn't human. It was the house. The house was speaking. I grabbed Sarah's arm and we pulled the kids toward the back door. We could hear the figure behind us, footsteps getting closer, but we didn't look back. We ran. As soon as we reached the backyard, I heard the door slam shut behind us. The figure wasn't far behind. We didn't stop until we were at the neighbor's house, pounding on their door. They let us in without a word, and we didn't explain. We couldn't. The house was still there, standing empty, watching. We never went back, but I know it hasn't stopped. Whatever was in that house is still waiting for the next victim to make the same mistake we made. We left, but I don't think we'll ever really escape. We tried to move on, found a new place, a new home. But as I unpacked the boxes, I found something in one of the old frames, a photograph. The same one I'd seen in the house before. The family who lived there. But this time, there was something new. The figure from the hallway standing behind them, its eyes glowing just like before.